So it's a pretty well-known fact that a number of farm equipment companies branched out into household products, as well as some other oddballs here and there. You know, like IH and their fridges and freezers and whatnot. But they weren't the only ones. There was another farm equipment company that once made wood stoves and kitchen stoves back in the 30s. Who was it? Hit pause, drop a guess in the comments. Your answer in 3, 2, 1. The company? Well, that'd be this one. Massey Harris. They were founded in 1847 by Daniel Massey, a farmer from Newcastle, Ontario, and they built some of the first mechanical threshers as well as a handful of other farm tools for several decades until 1879 when they moved to Toronto and built a massive factory right in between a prison and the provincial lunatic asylum. And they went on to become one of the biggest employers in the city of Toronto and probably the province too, for that matter. They started diversifying early as well, and they released, amongst some of the other stuff that they made, they released a line of bicycles in the late 1880s, one of which was actually a shaft drive. Yeah, apparently that was a thing. At any rate, they continued to grow through the next few decades and kind of focused on international growth and adding sales outlets and factories elsewhere. And then they eventually got into tractors in the 30s. But like every other company, they were trying to get through the Great Depression too, so they knew they had to start selling other stuff. And so they started dabbling in stoves. And by the late 30s, they had a full line of them. And today they've become fairly highly sought after by Massey Harris and Massey Ferguson collectors. About that same time, in the late 30s, they also released the world's first mass-produced self-propelled combine. It was called the number 20. And then a couple of years later, they updated it to the number 21. And by then, the world was kind of on the way out of the Depression and, kind of preparing for war. And Massey continued expanding, and they took on a handful of military contracts. But as time progressed, by 1953, they'd merged with Harry Ferguson, and by 1958, they became Massey Ferguson, the company that we all know today. So, while it's kind of a weird footnote in tractor history, it's an interesting one nonetheless. Tell me this, though. What other oddball products have you seen from farm equipment companies? Drop them in the comments. Let's talk about them. Thanks for watching.